The government said to be considering the setting up of a primary health care authority to shorten queues at public hospitals. The strong wind signal number 3 now in force. And in Britain, the new finance minister reverses almost all the tax cuts announced last month by his predecessor. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Sources say that the government has intentions to set up a family doctor initiative which would subsidize those queuing for specialist outpatient clinics at public hospitals and allow them to seek help via a family doctor. Some patients' groups are concerned whether the scheme can quickly relieve the patient queuing issue, while a number of family doctors believe the measure could divert the patients to more sources of treatment. Timothy Lee reports.
The crisis of an aging population is a problem shared across much of the developed world, and Hong Kong is no exception. Currently, the government continues to struggle to find ways for the public healthcare system to accommodate the rising number of senior citizens. Among the most affected in the healthcare sector are the city's specialist outpatient clinics. Patients seeking help from ENT, internal medicine, and patients in stable conditions will have to wait for almost 2.5 years before treatment. Those seeking treatment from eye doctors in Kowloon West have to wait for 4 full years. In a bid to relieve the city's public healthcare crisis, sources indicated that in his upcoming policy address this Wednesday, Chief Executive John Lee will reveal a family doctor initiative. It is believed that the initiative will allow patients to consider getting treatment through private family doctors, while subsidized by the government. If their health conditions worsen, the family doctor will then refer the patient to a specialist clinic in hopes that the patient's treatment could be diverted to multiple sources. On the issue of treatment fees, sources said the government intends to pay for half of the cost, with the remaining half paid by the patient. However, those on welfare programs, receivers of government allowances, and elderly people will be fully subsidized by the authorities. The government also established a primary healthcare authority, which coordinates family doctors, general outpatient clinics under the health authority, as well as health centers across Hong Kong's 18 districts. Some family doctors, such as Dr. Lam Wing Ho, welcome the plan, calling it a step up from the government's prioritization of family doctors. He said that the new initiative could allow family doctors and the public healthcare system to support each other wherever needed. However, voices of concern emerged from some of the city's patients' groups. Peng Hung Cheng from the Society for Community Organization noted that residents are used to seeking treatment at general and specialist outpatient clinics, and a sudden change in the system may not be easily accepted. Peng added that the pricier medicine from private doctors will be one of the major concerns among those who choose not to participate in the new initiative. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping's work report at the 20th National Congress highlighted the pivot of the mainland's economic development more towards so-called domestic circulation. The mainland's economic agency says that doesn't mean the country is trying to become self-contained. Clarifying Xi's report, Zhao Chenqin, deputy head of the National Development and Reform Commission, says China will continue the path of the multilateralism resolutely and promote a more open and inclusive global economy. The agency also noted that the mainland saw a marked economic rebound in its third quarter. It believes the upward trajectory will continue after the 20th National Congress. Meanwhile, President Xi today joined the group discussion with the Guangxi delegation. There, he called on all Chinese people to stay united as a piece of hard steel to power the giant ship of national rejuvenation. The director of the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office today touted the 20th Party Congress as offering an action guideline for the SAR's governance. Jackie Lin reports.
The 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China opened in Beijing yesterday, kicking off a week-long gathering of the country's political elite. In the Guangdong delegation's group discussion session today, the director of the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office hailed the report delivered by President Xi Jinping on Hong Kong. Xia Baolong said Xi's speech provided a basis and mapped out an action guideline for the city's governance. He added that it offered new concepts, new vision, and strategies for perfecting the one country, two systems arrangement. Echoing the president, Xia referenced the 2019 social unrest precipitated by the now-withdrawn anti-extradition bill, saying it was the most turbulent time since Hong Kong's handover. The top mainland official overseeing Hong Kong affairs says Xi had taken decisive actions to treat both the symptoms and the root causes behind the tumult. They include introducing the national security law and patriots-only electoral overhaul to the SAR.
呢係一個重要嘅黨策同國策。
Lau Siu-kai, vice president of the Chinese Association of Hong Kong and Macau Studies, says Xi's speech gives more confidence to Hong Kong people and the international community that the city's one country, two systems framework is here to stay over the long term. He believes Xi's report also signals Beijing's staunch support for any economic and social reforms to come from the SAR government. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The observatory raised the strong wind signal number 3 at 11:30 a.m. this morning, and it is expected to remain in force until 5 a.m. tomorrow.
According to the latest forecast track, Typhoon Nesat was estimated to be about 370 kilometers south-southeast of Hong Kong. It is estimated to move west-southwest at about 15 kilometers per hour across the northern part of the South China Sea. The observatory says Nesat will gradually depart from Hong Kong tonight, and the chance of issuing the number 8 gale or storm signal is not high. It added temperatures will fall progressively, and it will be windy with a few showers in the next couple of days over the coast of Guangdong. As Nesat is set to turn further away from Guangdong, the weather will improve over the coastal areas in the latter part of this week. Members of the public are reminded to take note of the latest weather information from the observatory before leaving home tomorrow morning. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The city logged 5,361 new COVID cases today. They include some 400 imported infections. 18 COVID cases were detected across 9 care homes. More than 730 schools reported COVID cases, and 16 of them have to suspend classes. 5 more COVID patients died. Since the 5th wave of outbreaks, the coronavirus has claimed 10,065 lives in the city. Overseas in Britain, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, reversed most of an economic package announced by the government just weeks ago, including a planned cut to income tax. In a bid to soothe turbulent financial markets, Hunt said he was scrapping almost all the tax cuts and signaled public spending cuts are on the way. This is 2 weeks ahead of schedule in a bid to calm markets roiled by the government's economic policies. The FTSE 100 rose for a 3rd consecutive session today, as investors await fiscal plans from Hunt. But is this enough to save Prime Minister Liz Truss's job? Tracy Furness has more.
Britain's newspapers Monday are speculating that British Prime Minister Liz Truss could be forced out of office by her own party. The Times reporting that some lawmakers have held secret discussions on replacing Truss with a new leader. More than 100 Conservative MPs are ready to submit letters of no confidence in Truss to the head of the Conservative Party's committee, which organises the leadership contest, Graham Brady. Conservative MP Robert Halfon took aim at Truss Sunday, telling Sky News that her government looked like libertarian jihadists.
I worry that over the past few weeks, the government has looked like libertarian jihadists and treated the whole country as kind of laboratory mice in which to carry out kind of ultra free market experiments. And this is not where the country is.
But junior Treasury Minister Andrew Griffiths said Sunday that the Conservative government is still behind Truss and warned against making more changes inside the Westminster bubble.
This is a time when we need stability. I don't think anybody would say that what the country needs right now is either more change inside the Westminster bubble, nor a Labour government that will actually come forward and give more rights to the striking workers, that are a real break on people's ability to go to work.
Truss has previously insisted that her tax-cutting plans were what Britain needs to boost economic growth. But her mini-budget that she and Kwasi Kwarteng unveiled 3 weeks ago sent markets and the British pound tumbling and left her credibility in tatters. The policies, which included cutting income tax for those on the highest incomes, were criticised for being tone-deaf in the face of Britain's cost of living crisis. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Protests erupted across Europe this weekend, calling for governments to do more to tackle the continent's cost of living crisis and combat climate change. Energy prices and the cost of living have been soaring since Russia launched its invasion in Ukraine in February. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Protests against the British government's plans to approve new oil and gas projects hit London for the second straight weekend. During a demonstration by activist group Just Stop Oil, orange paint was sprayed over the showroom of luxury car maker Aston Martin on London's Park Lane. Protesters from Extinction Rebellion climate activist group gathered in Hyde Park before marching to Parliament Square. Scientists and doctors were among the participants.
I would love not to be here. I'm here on my day off. I would love to, but I can't. It is my duty as a doctor to stand up for public health. And at the minute, I have to stand up for public health in this country and abroad. It's affecting us all, and it's especially affecting the people who are least well off. So it's an inequality issue as well as a public health issue that's going to affect all of us.
Meanwhile, thousands of people took to the streets of Paris on Sunday to protest against soaring prices, as weeks of strikes for higher wages at oil refineries spurred demands for a general strike in France. Organisers dubbed the rally, which they claimed was attended by 140,000 people, a march against the high cost of living and climate inaction. They called for massive investment against the climate crisis while demanding emergency measures against high prices, including freezes in energy costs, essential goods prices and rent, and for greater taxation of windfall profits. There were sporadic violent episodes during the demonstration, but order in the French capital was largely maintained by riot police. The march was organised by left-wing opponents of President Emmanuel Macron. Among the participants were the leader of hard-left party La France Insoumise, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and this year's Nobel Prize winner for literature, Annie Ernaux. The protest comes ahead of what looks set to be a difficult week for French President Emmanuel Macron. Transport strikes called for Tuesday threatened to compound wage strikes that have already brought activity at fuel refineries and depots to a standstill. Macron's government is also under pressure in Parliament, where it lost its majority in legislative elections in June. Elsewhere, a crowd of around 100 people gathered in Rome to protest against skyrocketing gas and electricity prices in Italy. They demanded a cut in bills, pay rises and greater social benefits to offset the impact of higher energy prices sparked in part by Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Dan Orell, TVB News.
Still ahead, Russia launches a new round of missile strikes targeting Ukraine's capital. In Japan, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida sends offerings to Yasukuni Shrine. And the Consumer Council finds that some children's toothpastes do not meet acidity standards. Welcome back to TVB News. Waves of explosion rocked Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, today, setting buildings on fire and sending panic-stricken people fleeing to the nearest bomb shelters. Ukraine says Iranian-made suicide drones nosedived into targets in the capital as Russia continues to hit major cities away from the front lines. Nazvi Karim reports.
Just another Monday morning in Kyiv as war comes to the Ukrainian capital yet again. Officials say the city came under Russian attack during the morning rush hour, with several blasts reported in the central Shevchenko district. Ukraine says these suicide drones, reportedly Shahed 136s from Iran, were used by the Russians for the second straight week. Moscow denies using the Iranian weapons. The attacks are part of Russia's biggest aerial offensive against targets on the front lines of the war and major cities elsewhere, sparked by a recent explosion that damaged the Kerch Bridge linking Russia and the annexed Crimean Peninsula. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his nightly address that Russia's attacks on big cities shows it was in an atmosphere of hopelessness. He also said fighting was intense in the eastern provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk that make up the Donbas industrial region. Earlier this month, Russia claimed to have annexed these two regions along with Zaporizhia and Kherson. Zelensky said battles were raging around Soledar and Bakhmut, the latter of which Russia is targeting to free up a key supply route. Russian state TV, meanwhile, broadcast pictures of the aftermath of what it said was Ukrainian shelling of the Belgorod border region. It said 4 people were injured after at least 16 Ukraine missiles hit the area. Belgorod was the scene of a deadly shooting on Saturday, when the Kremlin said 2 Tajikistan gunmen killed at least 11 volunteer Russian soldiers. Moscow said it has opened a criminal investigation into the attack. In the southern Ukraine city of Mykolaiv, residents must queue up for drinking water. They say Russian forces blew up a key water pipeline east of the city several months ago, and supply has since been sporadic. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar and Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister Alexander Kubrakov visited the Joint Coordination Center overseeing the Black Sea Initiative to ensure Ukraine continues to supply the world with grain. Akar said a total of 345 ships delivered 7.7 million tons of grain from Ukrainian ports since Kiev and Moscow signed July's UN-brokered deal. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In Japan, ritual offerings were made under the name of Prime Minister Fumio Kishida were seen at Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo today. The Masakaki religious ornaments arrived there to mark the start of its autumn festival. Yasukuni Shrine is viewed by China and the Koreas as a symbol of Japanese wartime aggression. This is because the shrine honors convicted war criminals among about 2.5 million war dead. Such observances are seen by critics as a sign of a lack of remorse over the country's wartime atrocities. And back here at home, the Consumer Council has found that some children's toothpastes do not meet acidity standards, which could cause damage to the tooth surface. Heavy metals were also detected in several of these toothpastes, which, if ingested over a prolonged period, might cause cardiovascular disease or impair children's cognitive development. Timothy Lee has more.
Among the 30 toothpaste tested by the Consumer Council, 13 are children's toothpaste with prices ranging from $10 to $85. 3 out of these children's toothpaste were found to have substandard pH values that fail to meet mainland standards. The mainland standard requires the pH values of toothpaste to be not lower than 5.5. But one of these brands, Dr. Brown's, had a pH value of only 3.8.
The Council reminds consumers that when the pH value in the oral cavity drops to below 5.5, the tooth enamel might be dissolved. Brushing the teeth with toothpaste that is too acidic, added to the friction of the toothbrush, might weaken the surface of the teeth and could even lead to abrasion.
Meanwhile, 6 of the tested toothpaste were found to contain fluoride concentrations of 0.042 to 0.061%. 2 of the tested models failed to comply with the mainland standard in terms of fluoride concentration. Substandard levels of fluoride content could possibly lead to insufficient protection for the children's teeth. The council also found in several of the toothpaste flavorings such as eugenol and limonene, chemicals that could cause severe allergic reactions. One of the tested models was found to contain 0.013% eugenol, which exceeded the upper limit of European Union standards. Besides chemicals used for flavoring, 12 out of 13 children's toothpaste were found to contain trace amounts of heavy metals such as lead. The Consumer Council reminded that heavy metals could accumulate inside the human body, and if ingested over a prolonged period, could pose health risks and affect children's development. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Chinese University of Hong Kong has rolled out a new emblem in preparation for its Diamond Jubilee next year. But controversy ensues as a university council member slams the lack of consultation on the rebranding. More from Jackie Lin.
The Chinese University of Hong Kong unveiled its new logo today as part of a brand refresh for its 60th anniversary next year.
It is a new chapter for CUHK.
And this marks the fourth makeover of CU's emblem since its establishment in 1963. The phoenix remains a centerpiece of the latest logo. The ribbon below continues to bear the school's Confucian motto. Also kept are the main colors, purple and gold. But the colors won't be split up like before. The school says the simplified design helps pay homage to CUHK's legacy more clearly, while reflecting a spirit of diversity and cultural unity. But some students are disappointed to see the change.
But I prefer the old one. When the color is different, it makes the logo look more stand out. Also prefer the old logo. It looks better somehow.
In a statement, CUHK says it spoke to more than 2,200 stakeholders during the rebranding process. They include staff, students, alumni, council members, and the public. But lawmaker Tommy Cheung, who also serves as the university's council member, says he was never consulted on the change.
With any institution and companies, rebranding is a very, very big issue. Management have to do a lot of consultation, especially with stakeholders and definitely with the board members. You don't go out on your own and tell them, this is it. Whether you like it or not, this is done.
While Cheung received CU's invitation to Tuesday's council meeting, where the new emblem will be formally introduced, he says the way the school bypassed protocols already reflected issues related to its corporate governance. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Money Matters is up shortly. Bye for now.